We got about half of the people that signed up are here. Maybe a few more will wander in. The weather's too good. I was worried last week that everybody was going to be cold. I don't think we have to worry about that tonight. All right. Well, welcome back for session 2. If you were going to miss one session, this would be the one not to miss. This session is, in terms of sailboat racing, getting off to a good start is good, obviously, but it's hard when you get off to a bad start. It's hard to climb back in. And a lot of you know that have gotten bad starts. You're just behind the whole time, and it's hard to get back into it. All right, so let's do it. We talked about last week. Talked about boat preparation. Why is boat preparation important? You want to go fast. There's things you have to do to make it so that there's nothing holding you back. Something that you should have done or didn't do that's holding you back. And we talked about bottoms, right? I was in Noah Cove yesterday, and I saw 2 people from Cedar Point, and they, to me, and I checked over their bottoms. How's your bottom? Well, they were both ablative, rolled on ablative. So I'd give them a B. Their bottoms were a B. There was a boat next to them that looked like that old frying pan I had with all the rough around the outside. That's a D minus. It wasn't quite an F, but it didn't have holes in it, so it wasn't an F. So bottoms are important, because the smoother your bottom is, the faster you go through the water, the less resistance. Clean. Why is clean important? Clean and shiny. Why is clean and shiny important? Well, yeah, also the water does go across those surfaces when the boat's heeled over, and the less friction, the better. Also, it looks nice. And if you're looking at, if you want to keep crew, nobody wants, like I said last week, nobody wants to sail in an ugly boat. It's just that simple. Clean on the outside, clean on the inside. Nobody wants to sail on a dirty boat either. If you have a dirty boat and the bottom's not done, what does that say about the boat owner?
Look for another boat.
Look for another boat, or how well prepared is this boat? Is it safe? Is it not safe? Those are indications. Not necessarily a clean boat's going to make you safe or not, but it's much nicer to sail on a boat that's clean. Good lines and rigging. Look, good lines and blocks. If the lines break or are frayed or are old, they fail, they stretch when they're not supposed to stretch, they do things that they're not supposed to do, and they make your sails look funny. When the wind comes up, you want flatter sails. If you have stretchy lines, what happens to the lines? Under pressure, they stretch, the sail becomes baggier and baggier. So we want good lines and blocks. Blocks are important because all our lines run through the blocks. If it's too hard to turn on the winch or pull on something, it slows you down. You won't get things done improperly. Serviced winches. If you can't spin your winch, and it should do at least one 360 if you give it a good spin by itself before it stops. If it doesn't, maybe you need to service your winch. We talked about proper clothing. If you're dressed properly, you're warm, you're dry, you're focused. If you're cold and wet, you're definitely not focused, and you're miserable, and it's no fun. Always check the wind and weather report before you go out, so you know what. You're not going to bring your whole closet, so you want to bring the clothes that are appropriate for that day, and you want to take the precautions that are needed for that day and that type of sailing. If you have the correct sail plan, which means if it's blowing 15 when you get to the dock, say, let's leave the number 1 home. You get out there and it dies to 4 knots. What happened? You don't have the right sail. Or the other, vice versa. If it's 4 knots at the dock and it's 15 knots out there, or 20 knots, or 25, you don't have the right sail, it doesn't make for a good experience. We talked about be nice and have fun. The whole reason we do this is for fun. It's for fun, right? Everybody wants to have fun, right? Okay. So if we're not having fun, then why bother? All right, so we're done with, I can erase that? We can go move on to today's stuff. That's all the stuff we talked last week. If you missed it, it's on the Cedar Point YouTube channel. I tried to watch it, but it's hard to watch yourself. But it didn't turn out too bad. Like today, we're talking about starting. The way this seminar is set up is we're going to go around the course. We started at the dock. Now we're going out to the starting line. And then we'll do upwind, downwind. We'll do rules. We'll do protests. We'll do sailing instructions. We'll do all that stuff. So today we're going to focus on starting. Starting, there's 4 basic keys to a good start. Number 1, on time. What does that mean? Being on time. You cross the starting line when the gun goes off. Not 20 seconds later, not a minute later, not 3 minutes later. If you give up 20 seconds in the beginning of the race, you got to make that up. So on time, full speed, not luffing. You know, if you're in a dinghy, it takes 8 seconds to get up to full speed. In a 12,000-pound boat, not so much. Even some 8,000-pound boats doesn't go that fast. So when the gun goes off, you want to be on time, full speed. Number 3, you want to be at the favorite end, and we'll talk about that later. What's the favorite end and how do you figure it out? Number 4, clear air. Why is clear air important? You have the full power of the wind. You don't want disturbed air coming off other people's sails affecting your sailing, because that's pretty slow. If you get in front of a boat that's faster than you and you're giving him bad air, he probably won't be able to pass you upwind. Probably won't be able to pass you. Now, if it's a 60-foot maxi and you're a 35-foot boat, he's going to pass you anyway. But clear air is important because we all want to be going as fast as we can at all times. Other things we'll talk about is we're going to check the wind, check the line. Know your start. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is this my start? Because a lot of times we're in multiple fleet situations, right? Every division 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, whatever they want to call it anywhere else you go. You got to know what start we're in and what time that start goes off, or that it's scheduled to go off. Now, postponements happen, and you can't go on it, but you should know when it's your start. Keep good time. Why is that important? How many times you go around the course, you finish in front of boat A and behind boat C, and you get back to the dock, and they have you someplace else. Keep your own elapsed time, or at least the time that you started and finished. So this way, when you look at the results, you say, oh, I thought I was ahead of him. Well, maybe you were, maybe you weren't. You can always check your corrected time. But also, keeping good time also means I know when my start is. When's my starting signal? When do I have to get ready? When am I racing? When am I not racing? Another thing you need to do is tide and current. Around here, tides and currents you got to deal with. If you have a 8.5-foot draft, what do you got to do at low tide? You got to not be in the channel at low tide is what you got to be. You got to be out or in. You may have to go out early. Going out late's never good because you missed the start. And make a plan. You should have a plan for every part of the race, and starting is no exception. You should have a plan. How am I going to start? Let's start with all right. Let's start with the starting line. Where's the starting line? Well, what tells you where the starting line is? Sailing instructions. Sailing instructions tells you where the starting line is. Starting line is between a buoy and a boat, or sometimes two boats. And it's an imaginary line from a point A to point B. Usually, if it's a boat, there'll be a orange or yellow flag, depending on what the sailing instructions say. And that's where the line is on the boat, because it could be a large boat, right? If it's a small buoy, I always use the course side edge of the buoy, so it would be here, not here, because that's what the people on the race committee are going to look at. They're going to look through a staff or at a flag, and they're going to look. Are you in front of this? Are you here?
Is the boat that counts or the flag?
A flag. There's a flag on the boat. It's a yellow, orange,
if the flag
red.
is on the stern.
There should be no flag on the stern of a boat.
But if they put it there, that's what it counts.
That's where it is. If they put that orange flag, I think here at Cedar Point we use an orange flag. So there'll be an orange flag somewhere on the boat. It's usually towards the front, not on the front, but it's somewhere that someone can stand behind it and look through that flagpole and see the edge of this line, right? That's where the starting line is. Whose responsibility is it to know if you started properly? Whose responsibility is it? It's your own responsibility. That's right.
Within the crew?
Not within the crew. It's your responsibility as the skipper of the boat or the tactician or whoever's in charge of that operation on the boat. It's their responsibility to say, yes, we started on time. Now, what is the race committee going to do? They're going to look, and if you don't start on time, if you start early, they're going to tell you. You know,
Not two ways.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're over early, or you're OCS on the course side. If you're OCS, what do you have to do?
360.
You have to go back behind the line and then start properly. And then they'll tell you you're clear. Boat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're over early. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're clear. If you don't hear it, what does that mean?
They didn't catch you.
No. Doesn't mean anything. Because if you don't, it's their responsibility, it's the race committee's responsibility to attempt to inform you. Whether it's on the radio or on a loudspeaker, it's their responsibility to make the attempt. The fact that you don't hear it means nothing. So if we say we're going to announce it on the radio and you don't have your radio on, too bad. Right? So what do you do when how do you tell if you're over early or not? Can you tell from the back of the boat, the driver? Driver can't tell. Okay, we got a boat here, right? Can everybody see this? Big boat. Here's the mast. I have one person on my crew who's designated to stand here on the bow. Two functions. Function number one, she can look behind the sail to make sure we're not going to get in trouble with the boat coming in the other direction, or that's hidden behind our sail. Function number two, they're going to tell me how close I am to a starting line. Once I get within 5 boat lengths of the starting line, they're going to have their hand up with 5. When I get 4 boats, they're going to be 4, 3, 2, 1. You're on the line. You're over. Right? And I have one person on my boat. Happens to be Kara. She's in the back. When I don't listen to her, what happens?
You hear about it later.
No, not from her. I hear about it from the race committee. You're over early. Right? When I don't listen, I go over early. Because I can't tell from back. You can't tell from back here. So the point is you have to have a lookout on the bow. The whole 5 minutes you're in sequence. Why is that important? You don't want to foul someone before the start. Right? When are you racing, technically?
Once you cross the line.
No. Flat flag. To start, to. Okay? Pre-start is your prep flag. So you start, and then you're finished racing when you finish. That's when all the rules are in effect. You can port starboard someone all you want before the prep flag. I may yell at you, and it may not be fun, but you can't get disqualified for that, or protested for that. But within the prep flag and the finish, if you foul someone, you have to do turns, take a penalty, or be disqualified.
Prep flag typically goes up at the start of the sequence, correct?
No. What's the first flag that goes up? They're here. What's that? The number 4. First flag that goes up is your class flag. At Cedar Point, if you're one design fleet, it would be your one design flag. It'd be the laser flag, the Flying Scot flag, the Atlantic flag. Or in cruising class, we have divisions that are numbered. It'd be a numeral pennant. That goes up at 5 minutes, right? A minute later, gotta find it. What flag is this? P, preparatory flag. Now you're racing. You have to turn your engine off at the P flag. Okay? And these 2 flags stay up. That's your division flag is the first one that goes up. Then the P flag goes up at 4 minutes. When does the P flag come down? When does your class flag go down? At the start. Right? Now, if you miss the signals and you see a class flag, what do you know? What does that tell you? It tells me one of 2 things. I either got 4 minutes to go or I got 1 minute to go. What's that? 4 minutes. No, 1 minute later. At 4 minutes. All the starts are 5 minutes that we're talking about. All right, if you're one design and you do 3-minute starts, it's a total different start sequence. But this is the rule 26 is 5-minute start. 4 at 5 minutes, 4 minutes to go, 3 minutes to go, 2 minutes to go, 1 minute to go, it comes down. And at the start, this comes down. Right? Oh, this is a postponement flag, it's not a 4. What? Say that again?
The sequence starts.
The sequence.
The 1, the 2 at 5 minutes, right?
Well, they'll blow like 5 horns to get your attention, and then they'll count it down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then your class flag will go up.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's put a 3 flag. We'll do it, make it easy. Division 3 goes up. All right, so you got the P flag, the Division 3 is up, the P flag is up. So we're somewhere between 4 and 1 minute. All right, somewhere in there, that's when these two flags are up together. Then when this comes down, it's a minute to go. And I made a mistake here. This is a AP, right? That's an AP postponement flag. If this goes up, this should come down. And what does that mean? It means we're in postponement. Postponement is the race committee's best friend. Okay? It's the race committee's best friend. If something happens, a flag doesn't go up on time, the horn doesn't go off, there's a failure of some kind, they put up the postponement flag and start it over. Right? And when this goes up, we're in postponement. How long are we in postponement? Until they take it down. Then there's 1 minute to go before the 5-minute sequence starts over. All right, you get that? The sequence is, this would come down with a horn. Your class flag would go up with a horn a minute later. And then a minute later, the P flag goes up. And then 3 minutes later, or 4 minutes later, the P flag comes down. And then a minute later, you start.
When the prep flag goes down,
There's 1 minute. When the prep goes down, there's 1 minute left.
yeah, but then you sound the horn.
They sound a horn. All of these have horns.
That's before it starts.
Every time a flag moves.
There's a horn.
But not for the start itself, right?
Hmm?
Not for the start itself.
For the start, there should be a long horn, yeah, for the start. Now, if someone's over early, they'll blow another horn. And then what flag? What flag would you see if someone was over early? Individual recall. The guy's going to be on the ballot with this flag in his hand. This is individual recall. That's general, or the other way around. Individual recall, general recall. Okay. Probably says it right there too. All right, that's okay. We can all get confused. What's the difference?
No, the other one, what do you call
The individual recall?
it? No, the other.
General recall. General recall, everybody has to come back and restart. Individual recall, only the boats that are called over early have to come back and restart. All right. What's that? General recall, there's two options can happen, and it depends on what the sailing instructions say. A general recall can start immediately, so everybody gets back and they start that class again. If it's a multiple fleet situation, or in some fleets, you rotate to the end. So it depends on what the sailing instructions say. The default is you start right away again, but how do you know if it's your start or not? The class flag. So if they restart the race and the class flag, and it's not your class flag, that's what? It's not your start. And what do we do when it's not our start? Stay away from the line. Don't interfere with other boats that are trying to start. Because everybody's got a plan, everybody's got maneuvering. When I'm starting, I know who's in my division. I know who I'm starting with. And if you're not one of those people, I really don't have to pay attention to you, but I do because you could be in the way of what I'm trying to do. So you don't want to be in the way. And to be out of the way, you have to be a line's length to either side and above or below the line as a rule of thumb. Stay away. Now, there's always going to be things when the wind is light and you're in postponement and everybody's just floating around and all of a sudden they put up a start flag and it's not you. Turn your engine on and get the heck out of the way. Don't say, oh, I'm going 2 knots, right? Because it's really light and the wind's just starting to pick up. Just get out of the way. It's that simple.
Hey, Steve,
Yeah.
how late in the starting sequence can you use your engine?
You can use your engine until the prep flag.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Because that's when you start racing.
So when you
Kara, can you turn on some lights?
So when the class flag goes off,
No.
you can still have your engine on.
1 minute in.
And there's one over there for the front. There's one on the other side for the front. So, what are we doing here? One of the things we need to do when we start is to make a plan. What do I mean by make a plan? Which end is favored? Let's start there. Where do we want to start on the starting line? Do we start at the boat where it's crowded? Or do we want to start where it's less crowded? Well, that depends on your boat. Let's put a starting line up here. At Cedar Point, we use a flag on a pole. So the pole is what you go by. The thing that the race committee is going to look at is the pole. The flag is just to call attention to the pole. So there's a flag on the boat, whether it's in the bow or maybe it's in the middle of the boat, doesn't matter. What do we mean by favored end? Anybody tell me what that means? That's right. No, not necessarily, but yes. That could have something to do with it. Where's the wind coming from? Most lines, the wind's going to be straight. It's going to be perpendicular. What's that? There's no favorite end. So where can you start? Anywhere. Okay?
When would the start line not be?
Wind shift, 2 minutes before the start, shifts 5 degrees to the right or 8 degrees to the right. So now we're here. What's the favorite end? How do we tell? The best way to tell if a line is square is you take your sailboat in the middle of the line and you stop head to wind. All right? If it's the same on both sides, it's square. If this is your head to wind, which side's favored? The boat side. The side the bow is pointed to is favored. Why is that? That's a good question. Has anybody watched America's Cup racing in the last 5 years or 8 years? You ever see this? Looks like a football field. They draw it on the screen. Right? If my starting line is here, this is my starting line. Okay? Now I got my boat. I go head to wind. Which end of the line is it pointing at? The left side. Let's draw this line all the way through. Which one of these is closer to the wind or closer to the windward mark? We're looking at the scale, right? What if instead of the start line being here, it's up here? A little bit more dramatic, right? That's why you want to start at this end. Because if you start at this end and someone starts at this end, that distance is the distance you're ahead at this end, because you're that much closer to the wind. Well, it's actually, if you measured from here to here, that's how far ahead you are. That make sense?
Yep.
So and if it shifts, I'm going to change the line because it's easier to change one line than all the lines. Say it goes to this. I got my boat. Go head to wind because the wind is coming right from the top here. Right? Wind's coming from here. My boat's head to wind. I'm in the middle of the line. Which one's it pointed at? It's pointed at this line. If the wind was square to the line, it would be here. It's not. It's like this. I want to start here because then again, from here to here is the difference in distance that you have to travel or don't have to travel.
This only applies if there's wind shift.
It only applies if the line is not square to the wind. Not that there's a wind shift. Could be no wind shift, you just have a lousy race committee. Or a drunk race committee. I hope not. Not here at Cedar Point, you would never have that. But the wind can shift, if the wind shifts before the prep signal, the race committee a lot of times will put up a postponement flag and start over, move the line and start over, if it's dramatic enough. Now, if it's 5 degrees, they're not going to do anything because it's not that much, So 5 degrees would be here and here, just a little bit. Doesn't make that much difference. But when a lot of times there's wind shifts here, especially on a Wednesday night, it gets shifty sometimes when the sun starts to go down. And it's almost impossible sometimes to get a square line. Now, people set lines up because current and other, they try to compensate for current. And usually when they do that, they actually make a mistake and make it worse. So I just assume the race committee unless it's a 2-knot current, don't even think about it. Just think about the wind. It's much easier to deal with as part of being a race committee person. So after the start, and we'll get into this next week, is the wind going to stay the same? Well, they started. I can't change the wind. That's not going to. We don't have that control. So it may shift, and then this whole diagram moves with the wind. All right? When the wind shifts, it goes up a little bit, and it goes down a little bit. And you stay steady in the water, obviously. So you have to take advantage of those shifts to sail less distance. But we'll talk about that next week. Is there anybody that doesn't understand the favored end?
Could you put where the buoy is though, with the wind shift? Because I think we're all picturing the buoy right now.
Buoy is right here.
Would it be? If they
If the
thought-
wind shifts, this whole diagram shifts. The wind shifts to the right, boom, look.
when you were drawing the line at 10 or 5 degrees off of the wind,
Yeah.
had the windward mark been set perpendicular to the starting line?
Yeah, but they're not going to change that in the middle of your start. They're not going to change that. You're going to go. Only if they put up a postponement, they might change the line and change the mark. Sometimes they just change the line.
Last year, we had 2 Wednesday night races where there was practically no wind at the starting line. And if you got 100 yards out in front of it, the wind picked up. I think you and I spoke about it.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for the boat that's going out to set the pin to alert the committee boat?
They do all the time.
Okay, but these 2 times that we just sat at the line, it almost seemed like the same
All right,
spot all the time.
This
the wind
is
was
more of a race committee issue. On a Wednesday night, they're less likely to move the committee boat because it takes time, and they don't want all these boats waiting around. It's an hour race. I mean, they're just trying to get it going.
Understood that.
So, if the wind is coming downwind like it should eventually fill into everybody. It may fill into somebody. It may be a consistent wind increase. So, it's 3 knots, it's 4 knots, it's 5 knots, and it may come down slowly, and you can wait all night. Do you want to race or do you want to wait? I mean, that's the chance you.
I guess what I'm suggesting
Is they
not
move.
that the committee vote move once it's there, but that the committee vote, perhaps with experience of what's
Mhm.
reported to them, gets the latitude,
Yeah.
longitude of the more windy
Well,
area and go there first.
What we have is usually have a mark boat here, right? Mark boat's got a radio on it, a VHF radio, and they're in constant contact with the committee boat, and they're given wind readings, every 2 or 3 minutes to the committee boat, especially before the race. During the race, not as much, unless there's a dramatic change. But before the race, every 2 or 3 minutes, they're calling out, wind speed and direction to the committee boat. So now, if there's no boat up there, you can't do that. But what you're saying is it comes halfway down, and then there's a little dead spot in the middle here.
They're probably picking up their Tahitian off the committee vote and then going forward out to place the Tahitian out there to turn on.
Well, they would change the mark. They might,
So
but they can't do that in the mid. They can't do that in mid-sequence.
on their way out to do what they're going to do,
Mhm.
if they notice there is a marked difference in the wind speed,
They say.
alert
They
the
say.
committee vote before it drops the damn anchor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the committee boat drops the anchor. This guy never does drop an anchor. So, yeah, they're in constant contact. Like I said, every 2 or 3 minutes. Every 2 or 3 minutes, they're in communication with direction and speed. It happens. There gets to be holes, especially when it's light. There's holes, and they're unfortunate, and you're right. The first one out of the holes got an advantage. That's part of the luck factor. It's also part of the planning factor.
But it also got
Before a race,
the committee vote canceled the race because they had no wind there. And I was in the class that got out before.
yeah, plenty of wind. I know. I was in that class too. That's all right. Listen, what we're talking about is start, and what we're doing, we haven't started yet. We're just trying to figure out which end is favored. So we figured out which end is favored, so we know which side's favored. What's the next point that we have to be at? We have to know timing, right? Our timing, our 5-minute timing. We want to know where we are in the sequence. We got to know how long it's going to take. How far are we from the line? Are we a minute from the line? Are we 2 minutes from the line? Well, if you're 3 minutes from the line and there's 2 minutes to go, guess what? You're a minute late. right?
And the speed of the boat.
The speed of the boat makes a difference, the speed of the wind, how fast your projection. Everybody knows target speeds, right? We should be going 6 knots, or we should be going 5 knots. We're going 2 knots. Is that a problem? It's a problem. We have to deal with it. That's not this class, but we have to deal with that. All right, so we have to have a plan. And part of the plan is which side of the line we're going to start at. What's the next part of the plan?
When to
Where's the wind? Is it on this side of the course? Is it in the middle of the course? Is it on the left side of the course? So if it's on the right side of the course and we want to go right, where am I going to start? If I start here and go this way, what's going to happen? I'm going to get pinned over here because everybody else is doing this. Right? These are all boats. I can't go until they go. If I want to go right, even if it's favored, I won't start here. If I want to go right, I'm going to start here or maybe here, depending upon where other boats are. And that's part of the plan. So that's part of the decision on which part of the line we're going to start on is what's our planned upwind, our first leg. When do you plan the leg? On the leg before. On this, the leg before is before the start. So we're going to plan our first upwind leg before the start. We're going to plan our start before the start. What are other things we need to do to make a good start, to make our plan? Because you can't just go out there and say, okay, this is our plan and we're going to do it, because it doesn't mean it's right or the right plan or that you can actually do it. Good things to do. Go on port tack. Time from this end to this end. That takes me 2.5 minutes. Starboard tack from this end to this end should be about the same if the line is square. If the line's not square, then it won't be the same because you'll be on a different point of sail, going one direction or the other. But if we're going on a beam reach, going both ways, it should be about the same. So maybe say it's 2.5 minutes. If it's 2.5 minutes to go here, what happens when I'm here and I want to go here? It's going to take 2.5 minutes to get there. So when do I start going here? 2.5 minutes before the start, right? So you got to time it. That's all about timing and planning. What's another thing people do? You get these fancy instruments. You ping this side, and you put the pin in the boat in your GPS, and the GPS will tell you how far you are from the line. Is that a good way to go? I can tell you it's not good. That's past information. Okay, GPS does not update on your GPS in a split second. There's a lag. So if it says you're 50 feet from the starting line, you're probably 35 feet from the starting line. So you can't really go by that. Is it a tool you can look at? Yeah, because if you're grossly off, you say, oh, I'm 100 feet from the starting line, you look down and it says 250 feet from the starting line, maybe you don't know where the starting line is. So it is a good tool, but you can't go by that. Other boats get in your way, right? Come up, come up, come up. How many people have heard that at the starting line? Why? Why? Why are they telling you that?
I don't know.
I know.
They're just bad, nasty.
They're nasty people. They're bad. I'm coming here. There's another boat here. What can he do? He can go head to wind and sit there. Now, should he? Maybe. If you're the only one he's got to beat, yeah, he should do that. Because then it'll push you over early, and then you have to, restart. That takes time. But if this end is favored, you're here, and he's here, or you're here, he's here, and there's like 4 other boats that you need to beat over here. Do you need to worry about him? You can. You can go head to win and push him over early, but what's that going to make you? Late. Very late. Because what are you doing when you go head to win? Slowing down. Now, sometimes you have to do it. So what's the rule of thumb here? Nobody in that box. Now you have room to maneuver. You can come down and pick up speed. If you're too slow, you can head up and slow down. And no one's interfering with you. There's nobody here. A boat here can go head to wind. Right? Is that going to affect you here? No, because if he's just sitting there, you can either go around him or you can just start in front of him.
That's an imaginary.
Hole to leeward. It's what they call that is a hole to leeward. Keep a hole to leeward. Make sure there's nobody there that can come upwind. Now, I've been sailing at this club for a while, and a lot of other clubs. This club's pretty aggressive in the spinnaker fleet, and not so much in Division 3. I can do stuff in Division 3 that I would never get away with in a spinnaker fleet because they're more aggressive. More people are more aggressive. And we all want to be at that favorite end, whether it's here or maybe in the middle. But I can't tell you how many times I won the boat end and they thought the other end was favored and it wasn't. And what happens? I go out, I tack, then they tack, and then they're behind me by 10 or 15 boat lengths. It's happened the other way too, believe me. It happens to everybody. You pick the wrong end or the wind shifts at the last minute, and you don't realize it, and you get caught doing something you shouldn't be doing. But what is this hole here? Also, when I drew this hole here and our boat was here, what does that also do for us? Does one other thing. Boat here is not giving us bad air. A boat here is giving us bad air, right?
How can you keep it open?
How do you keep it open? Timing. It's timing. You have to watch and see where the boats are and how they're setting up and try to understand try to anticipate what they're going to do. It's hard. If you're new in the fleet, it's very hard to do, but you'll get it after a while. When you come into a fleet, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy. So in dinghy racing, small boats, what's the rule in small boats? Principles are the same, but small boats can start and stop very quickly. I remember sailing and flying juniors when it was blowing 15, gusts to 20. We were in flying juniors. I had a heavy crew, so it was good for us. A lot of people capsized. We didn't capsize. I just came up here and let my sails fly flat and sat there. 10 seconds before the start, pulled them in, took off. Won almost every start doing that. It's timing, but you have to understand your boat and how long it takes you to. Can you do that in a big cruising boat? No, you can't do that. It's a total different ball game because it takes time to get going. I mean, if you're too early, yeah, you got to slow down. If you're too early and you're going to cross before the start, you got to slow down. We're doing a turn or something. But if you have that hole to leeward, you have a lot of options. If you don't have that hole to leeward, you have no options. You're at the mercy of that boat.
Well, in that last situation,
Mhm.
if that boat on the port pushed you into the starting boat,
It's your fault.
isn't the first rule not to cause a collision?
No.
So if you
He can go head to wind right here and leave you no room.
and pushes you into the starting boat,
Yes. It's your fault. It's your problem, not his.
but the first rule is not to cause a collision.
No,
and
no,
that
no, no.
person
No.
intentionally-
You have to keep clear. You're the windward boat. You have to keep clear. Right? The rules of sailing, windward, leeward. You know, if you're coming this way, he has the right to go head to wind by the rules. And what do you do if you're here?
You have to turn around. But what if it shifted to the left quite a bit?
Has anybody done this, by the way? Does that happen to anybody? Happened to me last year for the first time in a long time. I was like, what the heck's going on? I was out to lunch that day, and I didn't realize how aggressive this guy was going to be because he didn't need to be. And he surprised me. You live and,
That situation
you
shifted
live and
to the
learn.
left a little bit.
Hmm?
That situation shifted a little bit to the left.
Well, you can't let someone in and then
Push him out.
push up. You have to give them room and opportunity. So they're going to tell you, you're going to hear at the starting line, don't go in there. I'm warning you. What is that telling you? Don't go in there. I can make it. No, you can't. Half the time you can't. Or more than half the time you won't be able to make it. Because all he has to do is do it slowly. He can't just turn the tiller and go up. He's got to do it slowly, give you room and opportunity. But he can do it. And if you hit the committee boat, it's on you, not on him. Committee boats don't like it. So hole to leeward. So now we're still making a plan, right? So we made our plan. We want to start at the boat because we think the boat's favored by 5 degrees. Not traumatic, but we'd like to start at the boat. But guess where everybody else wants to start? The boat. What do you do before? What can you do before a race to ensure that you're not going to get closed out like this guy? I'm going to give you this trick, and you can't use it against me. Greg, you plot this course from a point on land to the committee boat. That's my close haul course to the mark. If I can maintain that, I'm good. Because if someone's over here, they probably can't get to the spot, right? So if I know that that's, now you can be on this course and say, hey, there's 4 boats in front of me. Well, you're just a little bit late to the picnic, that's all. And you have to start behind.
You would start a little bit
No, I would line myself up a minute before the start between this point I picked on land and the committee boat, because that's my close haul direct line. Close hauled, I can make it. That's where I would start. Now, constantly I'm looking this way, right? To making sure there's nobody there. What if people start coming here? I can defend it. I can push them off. I can just go off a little bit. I'm coming here. I just go off a little bit and make them go off a little bit, and then I can come up and create my own hole to leeward. But you got to be crafty, and they got to be sleeping. If they're crafty, they'll just go with you. Then you have to think of something else. Start behind them. Try to hook them on the other side. All these things, you know, you try. This is the guy, right? He's not going to let you in, so you can bear away and you come up. And if he's early, you got him. If he's late, you're late. right? So if he's being too aggressive and he's early, you can play that card by just going up here. Now he's got no hole to leeward, and you have a hole to leeward. So there's ways to fend off, so to speak, or to defend your area. But if you defend the area to leeward, you can.
A little bit left of your planned direction.
Then somebody can come in here if you go too far left, right? A little bit left is half a boat length, maybe. And you can wiggle a little bit, you can pinch up a little bit or fall off. If you're not going full speed, what happens here? Somebody's going to be going full speed and they're going to pass you, get in your way, they're going to close your hole to leeward, they're going to drive over the top of you, all these things. So what we said is on time, full speed, right? On time. The next one was full speed. And then, if we can, favorite end. And what's the last one? Clear air. If you do these 4 things, you'll have a good start. Is it easy to do all 4 of them? Is it easy to do all 4? Nah, not always. Do I do all 4 all the time? No, but one of my rules that I tell myself is I don't want to turn the boat or tack the boat or jibe the boat within 2 minutes of the start. That forces me to do a few things. Forces me to plan my setup, and it keeps me at full speed. Because it takes my boat from start to finish at least 2 minutes to start, to get to full speed, not even more. 14,000 pounds, it's not easy to get up to full speed, especially in light air. Any questions on that? Okay. I have a gift for everybody. Courtesy of Cedar Point Yacht Club, not me. This is a sticker. If you own a boat, stick it on your boat. If you don't own a boat, just keep it. Keep it handy. You know what? If you have one, tell me you already have one.
Thank you, nice.
You have one?
No, we're all in the same boat.
It's okay, they can take it home.
He has
Put it in your car. Memorize it. The whole idea is to know, understand it, and memorize what all these flags mean.
Steve? Thank you.
You got to have one on your boat already. But memorize it. I got more. I got more. I got another bag. Yeah, I ordered all this stuff 2 weeks before. There was only 20 people registered. I said, all right, we'll get another 10. But guess what? A lot more than another 10. Try to make another order. I have those too. Not today. That's not for today. Those when we do the sailing instructions, we'll do those. Everybody got one? I missed this table? That's because you're on the right. All right, if I didn't tell anybody, if you don't know, there's coffee inside in a Keurig, and the tap is open. And there's sodas and waters over there. throat's getting dry. All right, we got the flags. All right. What's going on here? AP. That's a postponement flag. Goes up on the boat. If it goes up on the boat, when it comes down, there's 60 seconds. When it goes up on the boat, it's an AP flag. When it comes down, you got 60 seconds to the start. Well, 60 seconds to the start of the sequence. What are some of the other flags we need to know? Oh, P flag. What about short and course? Do I have one here? I don't have one here. Let's just start at the top row. Okay. AP over H means races not started or postponed until further signals are sure. Now, if you see an AP on the flagpole, what does that mean? That means harbor start has been postponed, which means racing has been postponed. And when that comes down, you check your sailing instructions because it'll mean something. They'll tell you 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour and a half, depending upon what venue you're sailing in. Here, when it comes down, there's an hour, 1 hour they're going to start a race. That's here at the club. If not on the boat.
No, but here, if it is here at the club.
If it's on the flagpole at the club, it means harbor start has been postponed. And when it comes down, there's a specific amount of time that's specified in the sailing instructions. And here at Cedar Point, it's an hour. 1 hour. So if it goes up, if you're supposed to be harbor start at 10, they put the flag up at 10. They take it down at 11. When's the sequence begin? 11. Or an hour later. So if it goes up at 10, it's postponed. The harbor start is postponed. If it comes down, it's 1 hour after it comes down. And there'll be horns associated with that, right? If you see a postponement and the laser flag up, it's only for that class. If it's postponement in class 3, they're only postponing class 3. If it's postponement and there's a flying Scot flag, they're only postponing flying Scots. If there's a postponement and there's 2 class flags up, they're postponing those 2 classes. The rest of the classes proceed as usual. So AP over H means there'll be further signals ashore. AP over A, races not started or postponed, no more racing today. But you'll see that on the committee boat. You won't see that on the flagpole. AP over H means go in. Maybe there's a thunderstorm coming through. They want you to go in. You know, it's an all-day regatta with 3 races. You go out at 10, 10:30, thunderstorms come in. They want everybody in, and it's usually more for smaller boats, not big boats. Send everybody in, and then there'll be more signals ashore. Then that postponement flag will be up here, and when that comes down, you go back out. Abandonment signals. N flag. All races that have started are abandoned. So if you see that N flag up, I don't have one here, but that's what it looks like. All races are abandoned, return to the starting area. maybe to be restarted. Maybe the wind died. Maybe the wind shifted 180 degrees. And they're like, well, this isn't good sailing. It's not fair sailing, so we're going to abandon. N over H means we're abandoned, more signals ashore.
That one is then. So
That would be out on the water. Yeah. You wouldn't put that up at the club. This is from the U.S. Sailing Rulebook. It's U.S. These are the U.S. sailing prescriptions. A V flag says monitor communication channels for safety. I've never seen anybody use that. P's, we went through the prep. The I, rule I. What's the I rule? Used to be around the ends. So if you're over early, you got to go around one end of the line or the other. Z is a penalty flag. Percentage penalty if you're over early within 1 minute of the start, as in U and black flags are the same thing. A black flag, if you go over early within a minute before the start, if you're on the course side, you're disqualified automatically. If they call you, you're done. If they don't call you and they see you and they write it down, you're done. If it's a black flag or any of these penalty flags and you're over within a minute before the start, so the P flag is still up and you're in the, yeah, if you're here at that point, you have to either get the penalty and restart properly, obviously, or you're disqualified. Okay, recall, individual recall. Kara was right. Individual recall. It's that white with a blue cross. First substitutes general recall. Shortened course is a P flag. Or an S flag, I'm sorry. It's the opposite of a P flag. It's white with a blue square in the middle. That's shortened course. What does that mean? If you're going around the course and you hear someone, that means the next mark is the finish line. The next scheduled mark is the finish line. And where does the race committee set up? And this is a good, they can set up on the wrong side. It creates problems, but they can set up on the wrong side. Here's the windward mark. Here's the leeward mark. We're over here going to this mark. And we see the P flag, the shortened course flag, and we hear the horns. That means it's going to be shortened here at this next mark. The race committee should set up here. Why? Well, if that's the direction you're going to round it, and you're doing a port rounding, it's a natural. So even if you don't hear it, they're going to take your time and tell you you're finished, right? If you're not paying attention at all, you'll just keep racing for nothing, and you're already done. All right? What difference does it make to be informed or not informed? Why is that important if you're racing? Well, because if all you have to do is cross this line going upwind, it's all you, or it could be the downwind, it could be the leeward mark. If all you have to do is cross that line, you don't have to worry about setting the sail up for the next leg. So you don't have to take the time to do that. You just take all your speed and energy to make your boat go forward to get here faster. You don't have to go get the spinnaker. You don't have to go get the jib. You don't have to do all those things.
that flag, it's not at a marker. It can be.
It will be before the mark. There'll be a committee boat, another boat. If possible, it could be here. That flag could be here on this boat. If they don't have another boat to do it, yeah. If it's a Wednesday night and there's only one chase boat, and this is Division 3 and 4, and Division 1 is already finished, and they're all the way up here. You know, the committee boat could be doing other things. But if there's an extra boat, they'll float it a little bit before, right? And it'll be flying from the committee boat as well. And if it's only one division being shortened, you should see a division flag along with it, if necessary. Change of course. What if we come around N and we're supposed to go to G, and the wind shifted, they say, no, we're going to go to D. Change of course is a red stripe in the middle and two blue stripes, blue and white stripes. And then they should tell you, is the course to starboard or to port? But that's usually for dropped marks. If we do it out here, you'll see if we're changing from mark E to mark D, they'll just put up a D. And that tells you to go to D. Does that change any other mark? Not unless they signal. If they say D N, then you go to D and N and then continue from there. They can signal you. Usually. There's a boat there going with a little horn maker making odd numbers of sounds, 5 or 6 sounds, and they're going to say, you'll see the change flag, and they'll be holding something in their hand. If it's a windward, if it's a tetrahedra drop mark, and they're moving the mark left or right, there'll be a port and starboard signal, or a plus and a minus. Okay, if you see an L flag at the club, what does that mean?
Initial. It's my initial.
That's your initial. It means that there's a it means that there's a notice posted on the board, which means they could be changing some rule in the sailing instructions, right?
Does it happen often?
If it's on the boat, you see that L flag on the boat, what does that mean? It means either come within hail or follow me. The committee boat's moving and it has an L flag up, what are they telling you? Follow me, right? Or come within hail. They want to hail something to the competitors. Missing mark, rarely see that. I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times in my whole sailing career. That's if a mark goes missing, there'll be a boat there with the M flag. You go around the boat as if it's the mark. And you can't hit it either.
One floated in a Stanford, Denmark. Right?
Yeah, it's happened.
Boats found it, said it.
Dinghy racing, you'll see the Y, which is everybody must wear a life jacket. Certain distance races, like the Bermuda race, everybody has to start with the life jacket on, because they want to make sure everybody's got one. The orange flag signifies the end of a starting line. We use orange and yellow. One's the starting, and the other one's finishing. And sometimes you see blue. That's about it on flags. Any questions? Gone through a lot of stuff. Anything you want me to do again?
2 minutes start? 2 minutes shoot?
Do a 2-minute, you mean before the start? Try not to, you want your boat at full speed at the start, right? And every boat's going to be different. I try not to start, or try not to jibe or tack within the last 2 minutes or a minute and a half, depending upon the wind speed, because it takes me longer than that to get to full speed. And what's one of the things we're going to do? What's the first thing we're going to do? On time. Number 2 is full speed. Right? So if I'm doing this, I have to have good timing. Right? I want to be on time and full speed. I got to be good timing. If I'm early, I have to slow down. Right? Or I'm not going to be in the position I want to be in. And other people will be beating me to the spot I want to be in. So it's important to be on time and full speed. Kind of work together. If you're on time and dead in the water, does that do you any good? No. Nobody likes to watch the whole fleet just pass them most time. Nobody likes that. What's the next one? Favorite end. If there is a favorite end, and if you're new, you might not want to try to go all the way to the favorite end. Maybe instead of the pins favored because the wind shifted, and you know everybody and their grandmother is going to be over here. Start here. Give up the boat length to be on time and full speed. That's why it's third. These are more important. If you're stuck in here with a bunch of other boats, well, you'll never get to the fourth one, which is clear air, right? You'll never get, you might end up in a protest situation. People will be screaming at you, come up, come up, come up. And what do they want you to do when they're yelling, come up, come up? They want you to get out of the way. Right? They want you to slow down. Nobody's going to yell at you, go, go, go. Well, I may yell at you, go, go, go. But most people won't yell at you, go, go, go. You know.
So, when you're in the timing, and obviously, this is still very, very new with all this, but as you're timing, getting into your 5 minutes, 2 minutes, are we relying on the committee vote as the ultimate timing device, or do you
Yes.
run into a situation where there's a 10-second discrepancy there, or is it usually?
It's usually on the mark because most committees now use an automated system. And there's a half a dozen automated systems out there. The one we use here, because we've been using it for years, is the Ollie box. An old guy made these things in his basement, but he made thousands of them. Those are the Ollie box. The guy's name is Ollie. So he called it the Ollie box. It's an orange box with a horn on top and some buttons. And you turn it, and you can have it configured for 1 minute, for 2 minute starts, 3 minute starts, 5 minute starts, 6 minute starts. There's a button inside that you switch from 5 to 6 or from 3 to 5 or whatever you have it configured as. And it goes through the signals on time. It'll give you a warning. It'll give the people on a boat a warning so they can cover their ears because it's pretty loud. That you don't pay attention to.
So that box is actually activating the horns as well?
Yes. It's a timer and it activates the horns automatically. Do they fail? If they fail, what does the race committee do? Postpone it. It's not their fault. They can, the battery runs dead, or on our boats we have them built into the boat, so there's no extra battery. They have horns at the top. The rule is the sound signals are secondary and the flags are primary. But I'm going to tell you right now, flags are always late. The best race committees, the flags are late. And that's from experience. Sound signals are on time. But what happens when this line is 600 feet long, because it's a big fleet? What happens to the sound? How fast does sound travel? 1,100 feet per second? This could be 4 or 5 seconds behind. And I was asked once, I was on race committee, and I was a boat at the pin end, and I was supposed to call people over at the pin end. It was a long line. When I heard the sound, everybody was over. So what do I have them do? How did I have that fixed? They put it on the radio. They opened the mic for the sound. So if you have a long line, the race committee should open the mic so that people at the far end of the line can hear it, hear the right time.
Besides a favor and start, when would you recommend to do a port tack?
Port tacks, unless you're really, really good, don't try it, because you won't make it. Port tack is good if this side is favored. Usually, if you figure out in the last minute the wind shifted and that side is favored. So you're going to start here. Right? Where are the other boats starting? They're starting there. What do you have to do? Are you the windward boat or the leeward boat? Are you the port or the starboard boat? You're the port boat. So you got to stay out of all their way. You better make sure that you can cross in front of that fleet. Because you have to dock a whole fleet, you might as well just chill out and start later. Because it's not good to duck the whole fleet. Because you got to remember, everybody up here that you're ducking, so if you start here and you can't make it, you got to duck. Right? That's not fast.
For many of the new sailors, we might not be as aggressive to be in the front.
Right. Well, you better be on time at full speed. You're at the favored end, and you definitely have clear air. If you can't check those 4 boxes, don't even think about it. Right? You got to beat those other guys to that point upwind. But if they're starting behind, have I done this in small boats? It's much more success. It's much easier to do in a dinghy than it is to do in a big boat. In dinghies, some of the people aren't as aware of the starting line, and they all should be at this class, and they're not. How many people here are dinghy sailors? 2. How many people should be here? How many people? This should be half and half at our club, but they're not getting the message. The game is big because you're out in front of everybody. You're crossing everybody on port tack. Right? They have the right of way, so you got to really be able to cross them. Can't be close. If it's close, you can't do it. You just end up tacking underneath here, and you've given up. You might as well have just started at the pin end going this way. To be better to start at the pin end at full speed and then tack later on, because people will tack because you're giving them all bad air. People will tack away one at a time, and then you go, and now you're way ahead. Just don't go past the ley line. Did anybody use the YouTube and Google anything about what we talked about last week? Or about starting. Infinite amount of
videos
stuff.
out there.
There's people a lot better at this than I that go into a lot more detail than I do. Greg?
That question, you know your start's going to go at 18:30. What are you talking to your crew about so that you can capture that? You know, everybody can get it on their watch. You have an individual person on the boat that is keeping time. You have a couple people.
Usually we have a couple of people. Yeah, that's important. So someone should be assigned to the clock. Someone should be, if you have, if your instruments have a 5-minute countdown that's big and bright in front of you, that's the best thing to use rather than a watch. And someone should be in charge of that. But it's usually the tactician or the skipper's job to keep people on time as far as getting to the boat, right? If our start's at 6:30, I got to be out there ready to go at 6 o'clock at the latest. I should be there at 5:30 and do wind readings, right? That's another thing we didn't talk about is what homework can you do before the race? If you get out early enough, you can go out and you can practice a jibe and a set. All right, a jibe and a takedown. A set, a jibe, takedown. You can set your leads on your jib to optimum level. You have time to do that. You go upwind on port tack, set your leads, you tack over, you go on starboard tack, or vice versa. It doesn't matter which one you do first. And set your leads. Then you can come downwind and you can check them. You can time the line, right? How long does it take to get from the beginning of the line to the end of the line? You can do all your homework. And the other thing you can do is take wind readings every 5 minutes. And that's another thing for your timer to say, time for a wind reading. You go head to wind. When that booms overhead, you're head to wind. Get the compass course and write it down. Because maybe you're 180, then 170, then 185, then 165. It could be going back and forth. And you can kind of get, Wednesday night races are short enough that if you're wrong, you're just wrong and you got to live with it. But, if you're in a regatta that the legs are 2 miles long, it's nice to know that the wind is shifting every 10 or 12 minutes. It's shifting 5 degrees, it's shifting right. Is it a persistent right, or is it an oscillating left, right, left, right? Does it go left a little and right a lot, and then left a little and right more? If you figure this out, that'll help you plan your leg. Because what part of the shift do you want to be on? And we'll talk about this next week. This is one of the major topics of next week. What side of the shift do we want to be on? Do we want to be on the side that's shifted to, or the side that's shifted away? Well, generally, you want to be on the side that's shifted. If it's going right, you want to be right. If it's going left and you're right, it's painful. It's like bending to get to the mark. It's just a longer distance. Rather than if it shifts right. You got 2 boats. Parallel. Right shift. Right shift. Right shift. Who's advantaged? This guy. He's in front. Left shift, left shift, left shift. Who's advantaged? This guy. So if you know what the shifts are, you can kind of plan when you tack. Like, okay, it's coming up to time. It's gonna shift. Let's look ahead. See what's happening. And if you're the third start and there's 2 fleets that go off before you, what are you looking at? If you're playing cards, you're in the wrong sport. Okay? If you're playing poker or pinochle or something, that's not what you should be doing. What you should be doing is watching the other starts. What end of the line are they starting on? Is that going to be the same for you? Well, maybe, but maybe not. You still have to do your homework there because it can shift 15 or 10 degrees between your start and their start. But if everybody's starting at the boat, then the boat's favored. If everybody's starting at the pin is favored at that point. Now that can change 10 minutes later. So it's not an absolute, but it gives you a thought, right? If everybody's going right, why are they going right? Is the wind better on the right or the left? So we can figure this out before the start, and we can plan our upwind leg. And that's the last thing we'll talk about tonight is planning our upwind leg. Because that you do before the start. Because if you wait till after the start, you may be on the wrong side from where you think you should be. So if you think the right side is favored, whether it's a current favored because of the current here runs east and west for the most part. And sometimes we're going north and south. So you don't want to go into the current in the deep water upwind against the current, right? You want to go towards the beach where it's shallower and there's less current, and vice versa if it's flowing the other way around. If the current's going out, you want to go right because it pushes you towards your mark. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of things you have to think about before the start, not just starting. Starting's part of it, starting's most of it, but you need to plan your upwind leg. When do you plan your downwind leg? Before you get to the windward mark, and we'll talk about that next week. What's the goal? What's the goal? We got a start line. We put our best foot forward here. What does that do? Gives us good speed, clear air, right? So we come up here, we play some good shifts. See, those are not 90-degree turns. We played some good shifts. And guess what? Guess what? We're the first one to that mark. Well, when you're the first one to the mark, you're going to bear away. If you're a spinnaker boat, you're going to set your chute, and then you're going to go downwind. If you're a non-spinnaker boat, you're going to go to the... If you're a non-spinnaker boat, what do most of us spinnaker people say about the first mark in a non-spinnaker race? That's the end of the race, providing you don't screw up something. Because everybody's got to go this way, and everybody's got to go this way, and everybody's got to go that. There's no choice in non-spinnaker triangle. You got to follow the path. And the shortest distance between 2 lines, 2 points is a straight line, right? So that's what you're gonna do. But if you're in a spinnaker boat, and now most of us are asymmetric, most of the boats, except for Brenniger, are asymmetric. We don't have a jibe mark. We're gonna do this twice, right? If we're gonna do this twice, we got to plan on our upwind what we're going to do downwind. Do we go straight downwind with a asymmetric spinnaker or even a symmetric spinnaker? Not necessarily. In light air, even a symmetric spinnaker won't go dead downwind. Heavy air, they will. Then they're fast. They fly right to the leeward mark. The rest of us poor slobs go here, 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 and then around. You know, but when do you jibe? You go around, you set your spinnaker. When do you jibe? How far do you go over to the left side? Is this side favored going upwind? Is it favored going downwind? That's what you have to figure. If it's favored going upwind because of the current, then this side's going to be favored going downwind because of the current. If there's more breeze on one side or another, then you're going to want to take this jibe. Right? If there's more breeze on the right side, you're going to take this jibe and get to that more breeze. If the breeze is freshening from that direction, you want to get over there because this guy that goes over here first will make a beeline to that mark. You know, he may go all the way down here before he comes over and then goes around to finish. But you have to plan that. And the best time to plan that is on the upwind leg. It's between the tactician. If you're sitting on the rail, all you crew guys, sitting on the rail, what are you looking at? You got your phone out, texting people? Are you paying attention, or are you talking about, the cute girl you saw at the bar last night, or the cute guy you saw at the bar last night, or whatever? Huh? We're not allowed to talk. Well, we talked about that about that last week. So, like chit chat is, you're not in the game. If you're talking about, is that boat going faster? Is it pointing higher? You're in the game. There's more wind over here. There's less wind over here. There's more waves over here. There's less waves over here. Whatever it is, it's your guy's job to feed that information back, because you have nothing else to do, right? You're sitting on the rail. You're the information. You're the scouts. You should be looking out for that stuff and pass it back. Now, you may not be right, but if you don't open your mouth, you'll never know. I remember when I first started being a tactician type on a boat, I always second guessed myself. Until I woke up one day, like, I'm always the first one to the mark. I must be doing something right. Then you trust yourself, right? And it works when you're new. It's like you're thinking about stuff, but you're not really sure, and you're afraid to open your mouth. But if you have a discussion with other people, especially knowledgeable people, they'll say, that's a good thought, but think of this. And they may give you something else to think about and steer you in the right direction. So if you're a skipper and someone tells you, I think we should go left, ask them why. Why do you think that? Now, they're just trying to make themselves look smart. They won't have an answer for you. But if they're thinking something, say, well, it looks like there's a little bit more pressure over there. And you're the skipper, and you say, yeah, there is a little more pressure over there. I see that, but there's also a lot more current against us over there. And it's not worth it. Or maybe it is worth it. Maybe there's enough pressure over there that it overrides the half a knot difference in current, right? Because if it's a half a knot of current, it's half a knot slower you're going to go. If it's against you. If it's with you, it's half a knot faster you're going to go to that point. Because we're racing around fixed points. None of this stuff is floating. It's all attached to the bottom. So current makes a big difference. Whose fault is it if you hit a mark? Skipper's fault. Driver. If he's not paying attention, we talked about this last week. If he's looking at those numbers, those fancy numbers, I got this nice fancy display on my mast. I don't even look at it. Not my job. Someone else's job. It's pretty. I like the flashing colors. Cheers me up sometimes. But I can't stare at that stuff. Unless it's, the only time I really look at it is if I'm sailing at night and it's pitch black and I can't see anything. Then I'm going to sail by the number. I'll keep a number. I'll keep those numbers in my head. Because if the wind shifts, I go with the number. I don't, because you can't see it. If it's a distance race, like the vineyard race, you can't see the mark. It's 100 miles away. So you have to, there's times to use the numbers, but mostly in day races, we're sailing around the buoys. The only thing the skipper should look at is the speedo. Because then he knows if he's going too fast or too slow, and then he can make some adjustments. Nothing else matters. Wind direction, no matter. You got telltales to tell you that. You want to make the boat go fast. I had a tactician, a very experienced sailor that actually taught me to sail and became my tactician. And he would say, I tell him where to go. If he doesn't tell me to tack, I'll run it up on the beach. Because I'm looking at that telltale on the sail, I'm looking at the speedo, and I want to make sure I'm going as fast as possible. That's my job, driving the boat. That's why a lot of skippers don't drive. Right? That's why a lot of skippers don't drive. Someone else can do that. I'm going to tell you where to go. Right? Their experience. Communication is key in all of these things. The person on the bow, where's Kara? Kara, how close are we to the mark? 4 boat lengths, 5 boat lengths, no boat lengths. Head up. She says, head up. What do I do? Before the start, she says, head up. I better freaking head up. because that means we're probably going to hit someone if I don't head up or foul somebody, someone that I don't see. Or she'll say, "Do you see so and so?" That's information, and that you have to be able to trust that person, and it should be the same person all the time.
Windy out up to your house, you're relaying that information. Turn the head up, not can get the boat line right.
People, you have to. Well, that's part of the communication system. Is that people in the middle of the boat got to pass that back. If it's windy situation, everybody's got to pass it back. So if people are chit-chatting about what they had for lunch yesterday, or the restaurant they went to, or the TV show that they like, they're not going to pass that back. That's why we don't want the chit-chat. Any more questions on, I think we're pretty much on time. I think I've had enough. All right, next week is upwind. If you want to review this, our target for getting the thing up is Friday, right? Friday afternoon or evening. And if it comes up early enough, I'll send you an email Friday night. As soon as I see it, I'll send an email to everybody.